Hey, I am so glad you are with us today. This is going to be an emotional one. So I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. You might want to grab your tissues before you start watching or listening because today I have a guest and I'm excited to learn about this guest with you. I purposely didn't do a lot of research. She was suggested to me. And when I heard what she was up to, I immediately said yes. Danielle is here to talk about her organization, Love from Lydia. And so we're going to learn all about Lydia and what this organization is together. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'm so glad you're here. And of course, the first thing I need to know is tell me about this precious baby and give
Yeah.
me all the information, what we need
Okay.
to know about her.
So Lydia was born in 2021. She was like right off the bat, was just in love with her. It took us a little bit of time to get pregnant. When she finally was here, I mean, she was everything to us. So she was obviously our only child at the time. And she was just like, she was such a vibrant child. She was just always laughing. He was just such a kind child. I think it's kind of fitting that we're talking about this with you, with everything that you do, because I really feel like she just had this special part of her. And I know every parent is like, my child's special, of course.
Of course.
But her teachers would even say, like, she's just so kind and she's empathetic. She died when she was 21 months old. So she
Oh,
was like, I mean, she was young, but she was just
hmm
like wise, excuse me, beyond her years. So, she just knew more about life, I think, than most toddlers. And
Mm,
she was my little best friend, she was great.
I love that.
So she was generally a very healthy child. She had one surgery when she was about 18 months. She had an umbilical hernia, so we had that repaired. Other than that, she was perfectly healthy. Like I said, very vibrant, always just smiling. And then on Christmas of 2, she woke up just feeling kind of like groggy and just lethargic and not wanting to eat, which was very strange for her because she loves to eat. And so we kind of postponed opening presents because we were like, she probably picked up something at daycare and she just needs to sleep it off. And she seemed okay, nothing so worrisome that we would need to take her to the hospital.
Right.
She just looked like she had a cold, like she just wasn't
hmm
feeling well. And she looked very tired. So we put her down for a nap on Christmas. And the night before, she was just not sleeping very well either. So I wound up taking a nap at the same time. And a few hours had passed, and I kept looking over at the monitor and everything seemed fine. She was sleeping in the same position she was always sleeping in. So after a couple of hours, I went in to check on her. And I remember I was just looking at the crib and, I'm actually in her room right now. I like to do podcasts and work and, the stuff that I do with Love from
Sure.
Lydia. I like to do that from her room because I just feel closest to her and, like
I
we're
love
sharing
that.
this experience together. So I went to wake her up and, rubbing her back, just quietly whispering her name. She wasn't moving. And then eventually I started to get nervous because usually
hmm
when she heard my voice, she would wake up. Um, and she didn't wake up. I called for my husband. We called paramedics. I did CPR trying to revive her. We were just so confused because we had no idea what had happened.
Right.
And then we went to the hospital but she never regained any signs of life.
Mhm.
So, unfortunately we left the hospital without her and went home that night and we no longer had a living child.
Things.
So we later found out from the autopsy that she was born with a congenital defect that just went
Mm,
undetected. It was something that was in the small intestines, and there was no signs or symptoms of it. I've talked to plenty of medical professionals after just to help me understand what it was, and you know,
sure.
I think. As a lost parent, the first thing that comes to mind is like, well, did I miss something? Could I have prevented this? That's that typical in grief. It's like that you are just like, how could I have stopped it from happening? And you almost like want to take ownership of it because then that shows that it can't happen again, or, that like you can understand it. And you want someone to blame, even if it's yourself that you're blaming.
I get that.
But in all the medical professionals that I talked to, they all said like, this is just something that happened. It was just there were no signs or symptoms, and even if she was the daughter of a doctor, they were like, there was nothing to indicate that there was anything imminent happening.
Mm.
So, I guess that put my mind at ease in terms of the blaming myself for not being able to catch something ahead of time. But it all happened very quickly, and it was like the rug was pulled right from under us because we had never in any of my imagination could I have guessed that something like this would happen.
Yeah. And I have talked to so many parents who lose their child or have lost their child suddenly like that. And it is a different, I think, even type of grief than someone like me, who my son had cancer for 16 months. We went through treatment. We had some time to prepare and to say goodbye. I can't imagine the depth of your pain and just not even being able to say goodbye and finish that relationship on this side of earth, this side of heaven, I should say. I think that would be very challenging for any
Yeah.
parent.
But ultimately, losing a child is losing a child, and it should never happen.
I agree. I agree. I don't, it's something I don't understand. How did you take that? Like, how did you take that deep grief and decide, okay, well, I'm going to do something with this that's going to be helpful. I'm going to do something that's going to help other moms, other parents who are experiencing the same deep loss. How did that, was there an event? Was there something that happened that caused you to make that decision to start this
So
organization?
I think it was a couple of things. My profession, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So by nature, it's like I want to fix things, right? I want to like just jump in and make things right and help others. And just, I think that was my way of coping with everything. I wanted to do something, like, because I really struggled in the beginning with like, I knew I wanted to do something to honor her and to work with her, but I didn't know what that was yet. So, like for example, you had mentioned cancer. I couldn't raise money for cancer, right? That wasn't associated with her. There was nothing like there was no disease, there was no event that happened that I
Mm,
could kind of raise awareness or raise money for research or anything like that. So I struggled with that in the beginning, but then how I ultimately got to it was when we were in the hospital. We didn't receive any support. We went to the hospital. It was on Christmas. So the answer that I was
mhm,
really given was, well, it was bare bones staff. It was Christmas. And it's like, but people die every day of the year. There needs to be someone available every
mhm,
single day, even if it is Christmas. So, luckily, and I hate saying luckily in this whole situation because nothing about it is lucky, but I knew where to find the resources. And I had like my
mhm,
support system were many therapists. So like they wanted to jump in and help also.
mhm.
So, I
Yeah,
had people who are close to me looking up resources. I was looking at my own resources. And my way of handling things is to just jump right in, and I want to connect. I want to talk to someone else. Like I remember feeling so isolated, and I've talked to so many other lost parents since Lydia died, and many people have that same experience. It's like when it happens, you're like, there is no way that anyone else in this entire world has ever experienced something so terrible before, right? Like because
yeah. They couldn't
unless you know
survive.
someone.
That's
Right, like, how
yeah,
did they get through it? Like, what happened? So, I really wanted just to connect with another lost parent. So, I needed to kind of pick up the pieces where, like, all the gaps that were happening, like, I don't want that to happen to someone else where, their child dies and then they're like, "Well, what do I do?" I was not given any numbers to any grief organizations, and there's plenty of grief organizations, in our area. There's plenty virtually, but nothing was presented to me. So I didn't know where to turn at first until I started doing my research. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to fix these gaps and I'm going to start something. So I created Love from Lydia in May. So it was just 5 months after she had died. And I was really thinking of like what I wanted to focus on when I created a nonprofit. And I wanted to use my social work background to really guide that as well.
mhm,
So, as I mentioned, connection was really important. So, I think about a month after she died, I started kind of dabbling in a couple of different virtual groups that I found. I found an in person group, but that just wasn't a great fit for me. I just tried a bunch of different things. And, ultimately, I found this local group who I'm still with them today. We have a weekly group. We meet outside. We have barbecues. We meet for dinner. We have great times together. And we also have this commonality that we've all lost a child.
Mhm.
So I wanted to take that and find a way to kind of broaden it and connect parents. So, something recent that I started was the COPE program, which stands for Connecting Our Personal Experiences. So it's
Mhm.
almost been in existence for a year. So
Okay.
it's still really new. And what that is really connecting newly bereaved parents to bereaved parents who are further out in their loss for connection, support, guidance, especially during those early days. So,
Mm.
the hope is, and this is part of my like my outreach that I'm doing, and reaching out to hospitals and funeral homes and first responders, like whoever I can get my hands on, to let them know of this free resource, so that if a parent is in the hospital or at the funeral home, they can be given this resource and saying, like, do you want to talk to someone who has been through the loss of a child?
Yes.
And just to have that connection, because if that was offered to me when I was in the hospital, I would have just like, I would have jumped on that because I had so many
Mhm.
questions. I had questions about, like, what do I do when I get to the funeral home? Like, what are the next steps? How do I get through the next few days before the wake? How do I just move on in the future? Um, how do I move forward and
Yeah.
hold Lydia with me, but also continue to live my life? Because when you are in the thick of it and your child dies, like, your whole world falls apart
Yeah.
and you don't know up from down. Like, you are just so confused. And in my situation, she was our only child, so like that was my identity. She
Right.
was my entire identity at that point. I was Lydia's mom, and now, of course, I'm still Lydia's mom, but I'm Lydia's mom, but she's not here, and it was just very confusing and isolating. So that's one of the programs that we do, is cope. And I a lot of the work that I'm doing is also trying to help hospitals and other programs strengthen their resources that they provide to bereaved parents.
Mhm.
So my website is full of resources that I'm constantly updating. I'm in New Jersey, so we have local resources and then we have national resources. And anytime I find another resource that's free for families, I add it. And I'm
That's
really
awesome.
active on Instagram too, like always sharing, because I just think that's so important. Like, lost parents, I don't want anyone to ever feel alone.
Yeah, it is like again with us, we had hospice care and I had never done that and I didn't know anything about hospice care and even to have that, I know that's before the death, but even someone to help walk you through that would have been so beneficial because the hospital literally says, here's your hospice care phone number, you call them, you set it up. And I had no clue. And definitely, as you said, going to the funeral home and making those decisions when you're still in a blur. And even for me, because my son died, you took your daughter to the hospital. Our son died at home, and then just even the waiting. Who do you call when that happens? And how we had to wait like 2.5 hours before before the coroner arrived. It was crazy. It was just a lot of questions. You're right. A lot of questions that you have, and there was no one to answer those questions. You really were on your own.
Right. And of course, the people around you, they mean well and they love you and they want to support you and they're
Absolutely.
giving you all
Yeah.
this advice. And you're like, but I don't want anyone to talk to me unless
Yes.
you've lost a
Right.
child. Like, I want someone's experience who has lost a child to tell me, like, this is what I did. That doesn't mean I have to do it, but like, give me
Yes.
your reasons for why you did things. So, you know, I think a good example is when we got to the funeral home, one of the first questions that you're asked is like, do you want to bury or do you want to cremate your child? And, that's not a question we ever considered.
Yes.
Maybe we considered it for ourselves in our, like, life plan, but never for our child.
Mhm.
So my husband and I were kind of divided on it in the beginning, and then we were confused. Like, we were kind of weighing the options, and I would have loved to talk to a bereaved parent who had experienced,
Yes.
either burying or cremating their child and the reasons why they chose that, because that might have helped guide me in what I wanted to
Yes.
do.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable, and I love that you keep saying that's who you wanted. You wanted someone who had been there, and I that seems like to be the situation for all of us for any situation, but especially in this. I was the same. So many people reached out and sadly a lot of it didn't help, but the few people who had been there before me, I almost like longed to hear their words and I longed to hear their advice because you knew that instant you get this, you get this pain. Can you think of some specific ways that your organization has helped other families? Have you already started to see some of the benefits and What are some of those stories, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. I mean, just so the way the process goes is parents can self refer, someone can refer them. And they're on the website on lovefromlydia.com. There is a page where you can put the referral in. I immediately get it. And then I schedule a time to talk to the family who has lost a child. And that gives me an opportunity to see what they're looking for, how I can match them appropriately. Like
Mhm.
maybe I have volunteers that are not just from New Jersey, they're nationwide. So maybe a family calls from Florida and they would prefer to have someone closer to them in Florida so maybe they can meet in person
Sure.
versus someone who maybe is in New Jersey but had a similar death and connecting
Mhm.
them that way. So, I like to get an idea of what they're looking for, how we can best serve them. And I might have been the first person that these people are talking to who has also experienced the loss of a child. So just it's
Yeah.
almost this sense of relief when you finally talk to someone else who has lost a child and it's like, okay, you get it.
Yeah.
Even if we lost our children in different ways, like a bereaved parent is a bereaved parent
Yes.
and we get it on a different level than anyone else. So I think just that immediate sense of community and understanding is
Mm.
most important.
How do they find you, Danielle? How do they find your website? I
So
know
a
you
lot
said
of
you're
it,
working with hospitals, but have you gotten
right?
into the hospitals?
Some of them, and it could be very difficult because these large hospital systems, like it could take months to get to the person that you need to talk to.
Mhm.
And then, it might take meetings that, if they're going to offer a resource, of course, they have to vet you, right? And they have to make sure that it's okay with the headquarters and everything. So like it's not a quick process of, hey, I have this
Mhm.
resource, please share it with lost parents. So I would say right now, the majority of the families that I've matched have been through word of mouth.
Okay.
So they have been families who maybe are about, a couple weeks out, a month out. We haven't really had that initial, my child just died. What do I do? And in a way, I'm not surprised because a lot of times, like when you're given information right after your child dies, like it's not sinking in, right? Like it's just
Right.
going right over your head because you have a
Yeah.
million thoughts in your head and, you're just trying to survive the next hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I get that so much. What are the needs? Like you had mentioned, you're kind of a one woman show. Are you trying to grow some of your support? Or if someone's listening and they want to help you, maybe they haven't lost a child, but they want to support you, or maybe they have lost a child and they want to get involved. Are there options for both and either or?
Absolutely. Yeah, I welcome help. I will never turn down help. So I think for a bereaved parent, that's an easy one to answer right now. It's, do you want to be a volunteer? And volunteering really just, you go in my database. So if you go on the website, lovefromlydia.com,
Hmm.
and you go to COPE, you can find the volunteer referral or the volunteer application. It's a very small application. And then we schedule a time to talk, just to make sure that you're ready to be a volunteer. You're in the
Sure.
right headspace. We talk about what your triggers might be, right? What could activate you. So, some people volunteer and say, I'm happy to volunteer. I want to talk to another lost parent, but I can't talk to another family who, went through the loss of a stillborn because it's just too triggering for me right now.
Hmm.
But
Right.
I'm happy to talk to someone else. And, maybe in the future, it might be different for them.
Hmm.
But right now, the volunteers I have to take care of them, right? I have to make sure that they're okay because you can't help someone else unless you're helping yourself.
Yeah.
Volunteers, you could be from anywhere. We schedule that phone call and then I have just a very quick training manual that you read through. And it just gives you some tips and just some guidance on kind of where to
Hmm.
go. And then we also have monthly groups for the volunteers. They're optional, but it's my way of saying thank you for building community, for
Hmm.
supporting each other as we support others. So we actually have our next group tonight, which the groups are always very energizing for me because I love the idea of just everyone coming together and supporting each
Yeah.
other. And so people in the group have talked about the families that they've been matched with and maybe something that they might be struggling with or difficulty communicating with the families because in the beginning, they might want a lot of communication or they might not really want any communication. And it's like, when do you push and kind of put
Yes.
yourself out there and say, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, versus like taking a step back and respecting their space.
Mhm.
So we go through all of that together, and we support each other. We share about our children who we've lost. We share stories about them, and I have a really great group of volunteers who come pretty consistently, and they've talked about organizations that they've started in their children's memory. It's just a really beautiful time. So I look forward
Mhm.
to this monthly group. But again, it's optional. And even if you're not matched with a family yet, you can still come to the groups and just hear
Yeah.
what someone else is doing. We welcome advice and support and guidance and everything.
I love that. So are there opportunities for anyone who has not lost a child, or is that really
Yes,
the ones
sure.
that can volunteer?
Yeah, so, they wouldn't be a lost parent volunteer, of course, but other ways that they can help is I'm always looking for connections to hospitals, to different organizations, like ways that I can spread this information and say, I have this free resource for bereaved parents, and I want to get it out there. So if there's any way that you can help connect me, I would love that. As I said before, sometimes it takes a long time to get to the person that you need to talk
Mhm.
to, who has the ability to say, yes, I can give this information out.
Right, right.
And again, it's not just hospitals, it's funeral home, it's first responders, police stations, it could
Yeah.
be anywhere. Um, and then
Do you have a
also, then in addition to that, I make these little white hearts. So I want to tell you a little bit about that quickly, but I'm
Yeah,
always looking
do.
for people who, if you crochet, which is really helpful to me, and especially after Lydia died, that was what helped me ground myself, was getting into like the fiber arts of crocheting. So if you crochet, there are these little like 2-minute hearts that you make, and people have made a bunch of them and sent them to me, and I sent them out to families and to hospitals, and we put them together. So the way
I
that
love that.
was, so when Lydia died, I mean, I like didn't know what to do with myself. I had nervous energy. I like was either laying in a ball or I was pacing, or
Yeah.
I couldn't regulate myself. And I found that crocheting, which I had done for years,
Mhm.
was really helpful to me. And I don't know why I started it, but I guess I just had white yarn nearby, and I just started crocheting these little hearts. Oh, I don't even have one with me, of course. But I crocheted these little hearts, and it was mindless for me. So I just kept making
Right.
them, and I was making like hundreds of them. And when we went to the wake, Lydia's buried holding one of the hearts in her hand. And
Mm.
so for me, that was like my way of connecting her to this physical world, even though she's
Mhm.
not here anymore. So she holds one. And then I was just giving them out to people who are important to me, or who had been involved with Lydia at any point in her life. And then I just wound up giving them to everyone. I wound up connecting them to little tags that say you've been hugged, and the website, so that people can learn more about Lydia. But it's also an opportunity to kind of like spread her out into the world, and also for people to learn more about the programs that we offer.
Yes.
People might be curious as to like, what is this doing here?
Mhm.
So I've done that. And then I on the website, I started this probably about 2 years ago. I have a map on the website, and when people like go on vacation or travel anywhere, they bring a tagged heart with them, and then they put them places for people to find. And then when they tell me that
That's
they've placed
awesome.
them somewhere, I pin it to the map. So like, she's been all around the world, and it's really comforting to see this map and to see these little dots
Mm.
all over the map, like places that I don't think I'll ever get to go in my lifetime, places that obviously she has never visited in her lifetime. But now she's all over the world. And even if one person picks up this heart, now they know just a little bit
Uh,
about Lydia. They know that she existed. She
I
wasn't even
love
two.
that.
She existed. And when she was alive, only my people knew her, but now other people know her. And
Yes,
that's
I
important
love
to me.
that. Of course. How do you think doing this has changed you? Like, what's been the impact on you by starting Love from Lydia?
That's a good question. It's been helpful. It's probably been the top two things that have helped me in my grief journey, has been working on Love from Lydia, because it's almost like my way of working with her still.
Mm.
And it's also
Yeah.
my way of like continuing her legacy. So that's
Yes.
helpful for me. So it's twofold, because that's one part of my grief journey. The other part is the connections that I've made with other
Mm.
parents. And if I didn't have either of those, or if I just had one of them, I think I would be in a very different position now. But, I feel very comfortable talking about Lydia. I love talking about Lydia. Even
Yes.
talking about the day that she died, I'm okay talking about it because I just want to talk about her.
I'm so glad you said that because I do think that's something maybe we should just help educate. If you're listening to this, you haven't lost a child, you might know someone who has. I feel exactly the same way. Don't avoid talking about that
Right.
child to that parent. So far, I've not met one parent who doesn't want to talk about their child. And all the, conversations I've had with bereaved moms, they're like, "Yes, I like long for somebody to bring up my child," or when I get a random picture, someone send me a picture that they found of Joshua. I mean, it might send me to tears. I can't guarantee I'm not going to cry. I might. But even if I'm crying, I'm so grateful that he was remembered in that moment that they took the 2 seconds to send that to me. Because, like you said, that's the way we know our kids are not forgotten. And I
Mhm.
think that's my biggest fear is that Joshua, it will be as if he didn't exist here. And that's heartbreaking because he was such a delight. And I want everyone to know him, and it makes me so sad that they don't. So I love that you brought that up. I think that's super helpful for parents to hear.
I'd
What
rather
is
someone tell me, I'm so sorry and I don't know what to say,
Mhm.
but just know that I love you, I love Lydia. It warms my heart when there's an event that happens in my life, like, I don't know, someone gets married or someone's birthday happens and someone takes the time to say to me, "You know what, Danielle, Lydia should be here, and
Mm,
I know that she's with us." Like, even saying that kind of like chokes me up a little bit because
yeah.
that's so meaningful to me
Yes.
for them to say, "I'm just thinking of her today." And
Yeah.
like, "Thank you." And even people that have never met her, they will just say, "I'm thinking about Lydia because she's a part of my life now." Even though that, we weren't connected physically, like I know she exists and, her spirit is with us. And
I love
that's
that.
helpful for me. I
Yeah.
just I just completed David Kessler's grief educator certification. And it's a 12-week program. It's really great. And I'm just enamored by David Kessler because he's like the grief guy.
Mhm.
I've loved the books that he's written, and it was just a great experience going through that certificate, having the opportunity to study directly with him and really like learn from him.
Mm.
So, I'm officially a grief educator.
I love
and
that.
And, I will talk about grief every day, all day, every day, because, we are a grief illiterate society and people don't know what to say. Often people would rather say nothing for fear of saying the wrong thing than to kind of take a chance and just say anything about grief and acknowledge. And acknowledgement is such a huge part of, just being seen.
Yeah. I think that's the key, right? It can be a simple acknowledgement. Like you said earlier, it easily can be, I don't know what to say, but you are loved and you are seen. And I will sit with you in silence or we can talk all night long. I mean, I think it's the loneliness that we face grief that's the hardest because at the moment, like you said, the reason you're doing this is because you are so alone in those first moments and those early moments and to give someone that connection that you're offering that's pretty incredible. I mean, I just think it's going to help so many families. How can we help you? How can someone listening, how can we help spread the word about what you're doing?
Well, like I said, connecting me to different resources that will help, who deal directly with bereaved parents, that's always
Mhm.
helpful. I'm planning on actually starting a group coming up for bereaved parents who are pregnant after the loss of their child. And, I think there's a lot of really great resources for families who have experienced pregnancy and infant loss and like getting pregnant again after and or adopting after or having another child after the loss of a child that they had. But things seem to kind of fall apart after infancy. And then there's no like, I feel like there's a gap in resources for families who have lost children, who toddlers and beyond. So I'm trying to bridge that gap a little bit. And that's something that I'm planning on starting in the next month or so. So if
I love
anyone,
that.
is preparing to have another child, having already experienced the loss of a toddler or older, if that's something that you feel like could be helpful, please reach out to me. spreading the word. I always like to tell people, like, if you're going somewhere, if you're traveling somewhere, I'll gladly send you a heart to place wherever so I
Yes.
could pin it to the map. So spreading the word that way, helping me crochet hearts is also really helpful.
Okay, super. And they can find out about all this on your website,
Mhm.
and it's Love from Lydia
.com.
dot com. And then what's your Instagram handle?
It's underscore love from Lydia underscore.
Okay, great. So we'll put all that in the show notes so they can link to you and find it. As we're winding down, I always ask everyone about their favorite childhood memory. And I'd love to hear your very own. And also, if you have a favorite childhood memory of you and Lydia and her short childhood, I'd love to hear that as well.
Sure. Well, the one about Lydia, that's easy for me because we had this one day that just always sticks out in my head. It was a day that it was just the two of us. My husband, maybe he was working that day or something, but it was just the two of us. I took her to the beach for the first time, and it was in September. It was the September right before she died. And in New Jersey, September is considered what we call local summer because it's
Mhm.
after, all the tourists have left and the beaches are free at that point and it's not crowded. It's beautiful. So I took her to the beach and she was playing in the sand and she like the water, she had the experience of touching the water for the first time. And she just has these like, she was laughing and I have these beautiful
Mhm.
videos of her just like completely mesmerized by this experience. And then I took her to the park after. Um, and we just had such a great time together. I mean, she was just so happy that day and I
Mhm.
was so happy that day, and yeah, I think about that moment a lot,
I love
because
that.
I would do anything to go back to that day, even if it was just for 1 minute to
Yeah.
experience, like, the joy that we both had in that day.
I'm so glad she had that moment with you and you had that moment with her. That's pretty remarkable. Is there anything else you want to share with us in closing about Lydia, about your organization?
I am a huge believer in just finding ways to honor our children.
Mm,
So I'm actually in the process of making a resource kind of guide of ideas that you can do that. I kind of like I live for new ideas
yeah.
to honor Lydia with. So like some of the things that we've done in the past, like in addition to the hearts, going out all over the world, we created a little free library in her memory,
Uh,
which that has been probably my favorite way of
I
honoring
love that.
because I go there every week and I replenish the books. I stamp them with my little Lydia stamp. And it really is a great experience of like, I'll sit in the car after and just kind of watch people use it. And I like watch
Hmm.
kids like, run up to there. Always leave hearts there and I leave bubbles there and different things that I know Lydia would have liked. And it feels very comforting with other people using it. And we had it made on the property of like, the municipal complex in our town, but it's at a playground that I used to take her to. So,
I love
and it's
that.
only
That
for kids'
is
books. So
that's
it was
such a
really
great.
nice.
Is that something that we could donate to as well? Could we send some
Sure, I'm
kids
always
books?
accepting books.
Okay. Yeah.
And especially what I found is books for older children. So like I have tons of picture books and they go, but the books for like preteens and teenagers, like those move quickly, which is great.
Okay.
I'm so glad that it moves quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, if you have a donation of books, I will gladly accept any children's books.
You're busy.
Well, and I have such a long list of things, like, I wanna do everything, but I still
Uh,
have a full-time job and a part-time private practice, and yeah, I can't do it all, but I wanna do it all.
Yes. Well, it sounds like you're making a real difference.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure the families that have found you are so grateful for that support that you're offering. And I definitely want to sign up as a volunteer because I'm 5 years down the road now, and grief is a little bit different now, 5 years down the road than it was in those early days. So I will try and do my part to support you. And I'm so thankful you are here. I'll put all your information in the show notes where they can find you, support you, crochet for you, donate books, all the things. And
Thank
hopefully
you.
we will be helpful in keeping sweet Lydia's memory alive and helping others.
Thank you, and
Thanks
I
so
love
much.
everything that you're doing, Kathy. After
Thanks.
I did my master's in social work, I got my certificate in play therapy.
Nice. Yep.
So, everything that you talk about is kinda right up my alley. I don't really work with the little ones anymore because 'cause I've kind of pivoted my
Mhm.
practice to working with bereaved parents, but the little ones and play and learning through play is really what kind of drove me in the early days of my profession. So
I love that.
but
Yeah,
you have
it is
great
my heart.
ideas. Yeah. You do
Yeah.
such amazing work, and you've helped so many families in that way. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Well, it was an honor to meet you, to hear about
Yeah.
Lydia, and to hear your story.